Greetings, fellow Fright Fiends, and thanks for dropping by the Horror Zone. This is your friend Boogeyman Ben. I know it's been a long time since I've done a Horror Zone video, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this. Today's video is going to be celebrating a horror franchise that I have loved for almost 18 years. Today marks the 16th anniversary of Jeepers Creepers 2, and on the 31st of this month, we will be celebrating the 18 years since the release of the original Jeepers Creepers. And in limited capacity, coming up in about a month, on the 26th to be exact, we'll be celebrating 2 years since the release of Jeepers Creepers 3, which would come 14 years after the sequel to the original. I have been a fan of this franchise for a long time. I absolutely love the Creeper. That character is one of my favorite horror characters of all time. And what I wanted to do today to celebrate, the anniversaries of these movies and this franchise, the originality of these films and all of the talent that has gone into them get lost in some of the things that the director has done in his past. I haven't revisited the series in a long time in a video. The last time I did retrospectives on all three films, it was leading up to the release of Jeepers Creepers 3. So in doing some research on this, I went back and revisited the Scream Factory releases of Jeepers 1 and Jeepers Creepers 2. These are two fantastic releases. If you haven't picked them up and you're fans of the franchise, I definitely recommend them. I definitely recommend them to fans of the franchise. There's extensive interviews on both discs with not only Victor Salva and editor Ed Marks, but also director of photography Don Fauntleroy and producer Barry Opper. It goes into details about what inspired the films to be made. One thing Victor Salva talks about is the fact that he, as a child, his mom used to wake him up when she was watching something scary and would have him watch it with her. And he said one of the first movies that ever scared him was Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. The other one that he talks about is The Birds. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is in both of those films, there are scenes that are depicted on roadways. So in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, I guess that I've never seen the film, but there's a scene where I guess the woman actually picks somebody up out of a car on a roadway. And then you go to The Birds, where you have Melanie Daniels driving to Bodega Bay. It's all leading up to kind of what the overall plot's going to be and what the story is going to involve. It's sort of the bridge before the terror. And that's one thing he said he took kind of, and not really realizing it, but when he wrote the film, he said he wrote it in 2 weeks, which was really quick for him because he said he's a very slow writer. He did write multiple drafts after that, but the whole lead-in with Trish and Derry in the car, that was inspired, unbeknownst to him until after he reread it, that it came from those earlier movies that I just mentioned that he grew up being fascinated and terrified by. And listening to him talk about it, I thought it was very interesting. Victor Salva actually grew up and was raised in a city really close to where I live. He was born in Martinez, California. And just hearing his stories about, what brought him into the horror genre and things like that was really interesting. I thought the interview was really, really, really cool. He talks about the fact that the truck reveal in it, when Trish and Derry are driving and you see the creeper truck coming up behind them, that was his Hitchcock shot. But a lot of people, obviously drew comparisons to Duel, the infamous early film by Steven Spielberg. So that was like another, kind of cool thing to hear about. That opening of this film is what I think makes this film so great. If you're not hooked from frame one, seeing Trish and Derry talking, making small talk in the car just about her relationship problems, and it just really is a very fluid dialogue between these two amazing actors, being Gina Phillips and Justin Long. You really feel like they're siblings, and I think what the freshness of this is that it's not a couple, it's not a boyfriend-girlfriend. Initially what hooks you, and those two performances are, alongside the amazing Jonathan Breck, who plays the Creeper, that is what I think is the strength of this film. You really feel like you are alongside with Trish and Derry as they're being tormented by the Creeper and discovering all of these horrific things. The heart of this film for me is Trish and Derry's relationship. You really are with them throughout the course of this film, and I love both of those actors. On top of the strength of the brother-sister relationship, you also have a very fantastic, very interesting character, and that being the Creeper, played by the amazing Jonathan Breck, who doesn't get enough credit in my opinion. That character is so amazing and terrifying and has a sense of humor to him as well, but it's a sadistic sense of humor. But I just love the interplay between the Creeper and Trish and Derry. It's very scary. And Derry, it's mentioned in this interview that I'm talking about with Victor Salva on the Scream Factory Blu-ray, but Derry is the audience. and we are Derry. So everything that he's terrified of, we're terrified of. And I just love the way that it's done. The acting is beautiful in this film. There's some terrific moments in this film that are just so scary. And the ending of this film is still, I think, one of the most heartbreaking horror movie endings ever. It still breaks my heart when I watch it. Everything about this film just works so beautifully, and it still is one of my favorite horror films of all time. It never gets old. I watch it all the time. I have multiple copies of it. You know, it's weird because that film came out like 2 weeks before 9/11. And it's really weird to think back to that, and Victor mentions it in one of the interviews. I can't remember if it was on disc one, if it was on the Jeepers Creepers 2. I think it was on the Jeepers Creepers 2 Blu-ray. He mentions that, you know, that it came out the gate really big. It was dumped in a weekend that's typically dead in the water for most films, and it was a huge hit. And but yeah, then 2 weeks later, 9/11 happened, and the country completely changed. And that was actually some of the inspiration that he used for Jeepers Creepers 2. When he was writing Jeepers Creepers 2, I think initially he was going to there was one story idea where Trish was going to be going after the Creeper, avenging her brother's death. And then you had this other side story that was going to be dealing with the kids on the bus. But Trish was going to be a part of this task force, and I think some of the task force stuff was used in Jeepers Creepers 3. But the whole thing is that when he was writing it, he just kept going back to the kids on the bus, and he thought that was more interesting, so that's why he shifted gears for the second one. He also got more money for the second one because of the success of the first movie. And what's funny is that Francis Ford Coppola, who initially talked Victor into not signing with Sony for the first film and had him come over to American Zoetrope, pushed him to do the sequel because Victor didn't want to do a sequel, because he said he set it up in a way that, you know, it was, you know, it's only every 23 years that this thing comes back, and Francis Ford Coppola was like, well, you could do 22 more of these then, and Victor hadn't thought of that because he didn't say, you know, like what day it was that the events of the first film happened. So of course, he signed on to do the second one, which was a much more big action set pieces for you know, the events that take place, and you have a lot more characters than just the brother sister in the first one. You have a bus full of kids. You also have the Taggart character played by the amazing Ray Wise, which I found out was originally going to be played by Randy Quaid. Coppola wanted Randy Quaid to play that part. He actually came in for a costume fitting, him and his wife, and then they just took off. And I think I don't know what that was when Randy Quaid was starting to go through his issues. But Victor had always wanted Ray Wise to play the character. And again, inspiration for Jeepers Creepers 2 was taken from Hitchcock's Lifeboat, because they're all stranded in one location. Also, classes, which is something that, you know, he said came up from the events of 9/11 and how it changed the country. So you have these classes on the bus, and it's funny because the ones that are the outcasts are the ones that actually band together and survive. I love the opening of this film just as much as the first scene. The scene where Taggart's son is taken as he's putting up the scarecrows in the cornfield is so iconic. Just the creeper being there on the cross, and him looking at Taggart's son and then turning away, I still think is one of the most iconic scenes in any of the films. And just how he leaps off of the cross after the kid, as the kid realizes that it's something there. I still think that's one of the best scenes in any of the films. It's funny, when Jeepers Creepers 3 came out, I rewatched the first two again, even though I've watched these films hundreds of times. You know, I wanted to revisit both of them. And Jeepers Creepers 2 initially I always had a problem with because some of the kids on the bus really bothered me. Particularly this character of Scotty, who is just such a despicable piece of shit character. But you do see that towards the films, you know, as things play out, you do see, you know, the character start to sort of come out of this, you know, anger. But you know, but now it's like I think I just see it differently, and I think the actor actually does a good job. I think everybody in the film does a good job. I think the characters of Double D, Minxie, Izzy, I think they're all great in the film. I like Bucky. Bucky character is really cool. Also, you know, Ray Wise is just the heart of this film. Whereas the first film, the heart was Trish and Derry. The heart of this one is Taggart and his vengeance towards the creeper for taking and killing his son. I think that's just where the heart of the film is. And I love the final act with the kids running into the field and the creeper chasing them down, and then the whole interaction between Taggart and the creeper when he gets him with the homemade harpoon that he made out of one of the creeper's weapons that he found in the field. I mean, it's just such a slam bang ending where he actually does kind of defeat the creeper. That last shot when he stabs the creeper after everything that's happened, and the creeper goes back into his cocoon where he's going to remain for 23 years, is still, I think, one of the coolest scenes in the film. It's just like it's haunting when he's staring back at Taggart for fucking up what he was doing, trying to take as many victims as he could before his time ran out. And I love that shot of him looking up at Taggart. I still think it's haunting. And again, performances by Ray Wise and Jonathan Breck, just absolutely fantastic. Now it's funny, a lot of people hate Jeepers Creepers 3, and I gave it a really strong review. In fact, I said I liked it more than 2 when I reviewed it back in 2017, the night I saw it. Now, number 1, I was a huge fan of the franchise. I never thought we'd get a 3rd film. Going into it that night, I was so excited to see a new film, and I remember I bought my tickets. I was just about to lose my job at UC Berkeley when that movie went on sale through Fathom Events. I couldn't believe it because I knew they were shooting it. They initially were going to shoot it in Canada, but because of Victor Salva's past and all of that coming back to light when he started, ready to scout and cast for the film, he was not allowed to cast, I think, actors of a certain age because of his past indiscretions in this film. So he moved it from Canada to Louisiana, whereas the first film was shot in Florida, the second one was shot in California, this one was being shot in Louisiana. And I knew they were filming it. And I remember I announced it on this channel way back in 2015. I think it was around this time in 2015 that they announced that Jeepers Creepers 3 was going to shoot. It wasn't the original 3rd film, though. The original 3rd film was going to be called Cathedral. This was a brand new script, and he mentions it on these documentaries on the Scream Factory Blu-rays, that it was going to be his version of Jeepers Creepers 1.5. It was going to be taking place 3 days between Jeepers Creepers 1 and Jeepers Creepers 2. So it was going to kind of bridge the 2 films. And this one was going to be taking the task force element that was originally part of, I think, his 2nd script. And I think it might have been part of Cathedral. I haven't read Cathedral. But I know that there was a task force involved. But I kept thinking that Trish was supposed to be leading it. But anyway, they took the task force element and stripped that out of the 2nd film, and then they put it into the 3rd film. So you have this task force of people that have all been touched by the creeper. They have had family members taken by the creeper the past 23-year cycle. And then you have Tesh Tango, played by Stan Shaw, who's leading them and trying to help hunt down the creeper and kill him for good. But then you also have a callback to the first Jeepers Creepers, where you have Kenny and Darla. So you have Kenny Brennan, who was killed, and that was the whole story that Trish and Derry are talking about in the car at the beginning of Jeepers Creepers 1. So you have that character's family as one of the focal points of this one, and it's led by Meg Foster as Kenny's mom. And then you also have Gabrielle Ha, who plays Addie, the granddaughter to Meg Foster's character. So when they pushed it out into theaters, I think a lot of people were expecting it to pick up from 2, and when it didn't, that was number 1 disappointment. Some of the special effects were the other disappointment. Obviously they rushed it. You can tell that the effects are not as polished as they are in the first 2 films. And the other thing is that some of the acting isn't that great. Whereas the first 2 films, you had really clear protagonists. You had very strong people that you could latch onto, and you're on this journey with them as the creeper is after them, or as they're pursuing the creeper for something that he has done. Now in this one, you have the character of Addie, who I just don't think is a great character. And I don't know if it has to do with Victor's writing for the 3rd one, or if it's the woman's performance. Gabrielle Ha is just doesn't have a lot of emotion. And I'm not trying to knock her or anything, but she's just not a character that I could get behind. I know that actress didn't get along with the character of Buddy, played by Esther Rushing, and it shows, because they're supposed to have this little sexual tension between them where they like each other, but his father doesn't like her, and all this, so there's that, that his son could do better than her, and so there's that going on. But I just never bought them as a couple, and I think that's one of the weak elements. But there are other actors in this film. I think Stan Shaw does a good job as Tesh Tango. I wish they could have done more more with his character. I think Meg Foster is probably one of the strongest in it. She's probably the strongest actor next to Jonathan Breck in this one. I think she was really good, and she's a very sympathetic character. You understand where she's going. She's lost her son to this creature, and now she's in danger of losing her granddaughter to this creature. And this and her working with Tash Tango to try to figure out what the creeper is, because they have part of him that her son took, and that's why the creeper killed him. So there's like little different story touches that kind of say that, you know, the creeper is trying to prevent people from figuring out what he is, so they won't ultimately try to figure out how to kill him. So I mean, there's that story arc going on. I thought Brandon Smith was good to bring back his Tubbs, because he had a small part in the original, and I think he does a good job with the material he's given. But for me, I think the weakest element of part 3, it's not, you know, like a lot of people said, it's the effects, it's this and that. Yeah, I can look past that. You know, I look at, you know, the story, and I love the character, and I thought, you know, Jonathan Breck kills it, and I love that the truck was back. There's so many elements of the film that I really like. Didn't bother me that it took place in the daytime. I know that was some people's problems. Half the first film took place in the daytime. I think the thing for me is that the weak performances, especially the main protagonist, just couldn't get by her. And actually, I found out doing some research that there's another actress that's in the film. Her name is Meg Wright. She actually auditioned to play Addie. They initially moved her into a smaller character playing Kirk's sister Gracie. She should have been Addie. As soon as she's on frame, she's got this bubbly personality, very charismatic, a really good performer. I don't know what Victor saw in Gabrielle that he didn't see in Meg, but Meg should have been. I think if Meg, that actress, would have played Addie, I think I would have liked that character so much more. Rewatching the film many times over the last couple years, that is the weak link for Jeepers Creepers 3 for me, despite the fact that I really like the movie. I don't know why I like it. It could have been because I felt like it was a gift to fans. At least we got something. For years and years and years, we wanted another film. And even though it wasn't the film that I wanted the third film to pick up after 2. At least we got the Creeper back. Jonathan Breck killed it again. I was so happy to see the Creeper truck back in it. The problems that people have with the truck doing different things, really, I think it's petty stuff that they're just looking to bitch about something. Because the Creeper already had weapons that did weird things. In the second one, when he has the daggers and the throwing stars, when Taggart picks up one of the daggers, it shoots across the room. So there was like some type of energy or something in those. So when he's dropping the things out of the truck and it's blowing up, you know, some of the task force cars and things like that, it didn't seem that strange to me. Plus the fact that he had there was really good callbacks to the first movie. I mean, the fact that he had the police scanner in the truck, which is something he took from the cops that he killed in the first film. Or there's a scene at the end where the character of Buddy is getting on the bus that's in the second one, and the woman behind him, I can't recall the character's name, is wearing the same color clothes that the actress wore in the second film. So there's really good continuity if people would just look for it. Jonathan Breck kills it, and even though some of the effects are different, I still think he gave his all to this performance. I don't think Victor was able to finish it and do the vision he wanted to do. I think they just rushed everything and pushed it out, because there's a lot of shots in the film that are reused. There's audio that's reused from some of the other films. They had a different composer for the second film, a different editor for the second film, and I know that Ed Marks, who edited the first 2 Jeepers Creepers films, is really close with Victor. But that being said, I still love Jeepers Creepers 3. I like all 3 films. I really can't put one over the other. I think back when I did the review of Part 3, I said it was better than 2. I like 2 a lot, so I like all 3 of them. I think it's probably neck and neck. 2 and 3 are neck and neck for me. The first one's always going to be my favorite. But I love this franchise, and I'm really excited that there's been some rumblings that Jeepers Creepers 4 is being made. And to talk about Victor Salva a little bit. I've already done a video addressing the fact about what he had done to actor Nathan Forrest Winters, who was an actor in the film Clown House, one of Victor's first movies. It's unfortunate that Victor did that. I think anybody that takes the innocence from a child like that is it's just one of the worst things that you can do. And but Victor did go to jail. Yes, a lot of people say that he didn't serve enough time, but he did go to jail. He did register as a sex offender. There's an interview with Ed Marks, the editor on Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, and he's actually worked with Victor on several other projects. I believe one of them was Dark House. But he talks about meeting Victor for the first time, and says that Victor is the first person to be upfront about his past crimes. And my whole thing is that, yes, you can't forget what happened, Yes, he did a horrible thing to an innocent child. There's no excuse for that, and he did face the consequences for doing what he did. But my thing is that the man has been punished. There's rumors that he grew up in a very abusive household. His stepfather was very abusive to him, drinker, somebody, I think he, rumors, I don't know if it's true. I've heard he was sexually abused by this man. I know he was hurt by this man. But my whole thing is that in this society, in this world, you know, we're always saying that, you know, people need to be forgiven. People need to be able to accept what they've done and try to redeem themselves. Victor seems to be somebody that has tried to do that. The man paid for what he did. That's not to say that we should forget what he did, but how much more punishment does he need to have? He's never committed this crime again, that I know of, that anybody knows of. It's been 31 years since it happened. No one knows why people do horrible things. But the whole thing is, I believe in forgiveness. That's just the way I was brought up. It's a big thing to forgive. Should he have gone to jail longer? Yeah, he absolutely should have, but he didn't. And that was the justice system. I feel like the man paid for his crimes. Yeah, we can't forget what he did, but you got to forgive him and hope that maybe he learned from his past mistakes and he's trying to just live a better life and be a better person. I think he's a very talented writer. I think he's a very talented director. He's written a franchise that I absolutely love. Celebrating this franchise, I love the character of the Creeper, just like I love Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Norman Bates. The character is amazing. I really hope we get a fourth film soon. I feel like it's been weird the last couple weeks. I've been just getting a rumbling that we're going to get something announced about Jeepers Creepers 4. Funko announced that they are putting out 2 Jeepers Creepers pops. They're putting out one where he's got the hat and the battle axe and everything, and then they got another one where his face opens up. They have that one coming out. That's an FYE exclusive. Those are supposed to be dropping in November. I cannot wait to get them. I've already bought the regular one. I'm going to pre-order the FYE one as soon as I get it, as soon as it becomes available. I feel like there's so much love for this character, and I think it's so unfair that this character and the crew and the cast of these amazing movies are kind of lumped in with what Victor did back in the 80s. Yeah, he committed something horrible, but no one else in these productions did. Not Francis Ford Coppola, not Ray Wise, not Justin Long, not any of these people. They all just committed to this amazing movie series that I absolutely love. And I think they should be celebrated. I think this series should be celebrated, and I want to see more adventures with the Creeper. I want to see more of this character. You know, alongside the film that we got in 2017, we also got an amazing comic book series. I've showed it in a couple videos, but this was put out by Dynamite Comics. But here's a couple of the covers right here. You know, it was only a 5-issue limited series, but I got every cover variant that they had. It's a really good story, and I think it would make an interesting film as well. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I just wanted to pay tribute to Jeepers Creepers franchise. It seems like there is a really big fan base for this franchise, and for people like me, we just want to see this character in more films. So that's why I did this video. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please leave me your thoughts down below in the comments. Again, please, you know, what I said about Victor, that's my opinion. I don't expect everyone to agree with me, but that's just how I feel about the whole thing. You know, and, you know, I really just did this video to celebrate the Creeper, my little Creeper figure here from Serial Resin. Just to celebrate the Creeper and this amazing franchise, which I absolutely love. Cannot say enough great things about it. And thank you so much again for watching. And I promise there's some really cool stuff coming out of the Horror Zone very soon. So take it easy. Stay scared as always. Peace. I have a Patreon page. If everybody wants to help support me, the link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats. And Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?